Welcome back to Average Guy DIY. It has come to my attention that I never really did a very good walkthrough video of the Thundercraft that we partially restored. So we're going to do that today. Stay tuned. All right, so we're just going to start with the trailer here. The first thing you'll notice is on this trailer, there's a lot of rust, and it's just because where we live and where we boat is all salt water. So the rust kind of builds up. And it's good because it's going to make for another video when we actually sandblast that rust off the trailer and uh, and get it back to its original form. You'll also notice on the bottom of the boat, it's a little bit yellowish from the salt water as well. And that's basically just because sometimes we leave the boat in the water for multiple days at a time. But I know the bearings are good. Everything else is good. The wheels underneath are good. And the trailer holds up extremely nice. And it runs extremely well as well. It's also got all the light fixtures. Everything there is hooked up and ready to go. And as you can see, we're running just a Johnson outboard. It's a 90 horsepower. And it's actually a very old engine, but it runs really well. So we'll definitely keep that on the back there for now. The original canopies that it came with on the boat were in really good shape. I just had to replace a few snap buttons in the front and a few snap buttons in the back. But when it's sitting in the water and the canopies are on, no water gets in, which is really good. The interior is really old school. It has a 80s theme to it. At first I didn't like it, but it did grow on me. And it's cool to try and keep a lot of the original parts and colors of the boat. In the bow, we have the regular 3 cushions, just like any other boat. Under the front cushion is where we store our anchor. On the right-hand side, we store life jackets, which is the same on the left-hand side as well. A lot of our stereo wires and our light wires run through here as well. All the upholstery that you see there on the side had to all come down, and I had to refurbish a lot of that. Those 2 hookups are for headlights, and I'll show you those momentarily. The color scheme really came together. Every part I bought was from Marine Fiberglass in Dartmouth, and I'll leave the link for that boat shop down below. I had the choice between plastic cup holders and stainless steel, but I definitely went stainless steel because I know they'll last a little bit longer. We don't smoke, but the original upholstery came with the ashtray, and it just looks so cool. I had to mount it back up there by the cup holder. This is just your regular dash cupboard. It's always good to have one of these handy. The gauges were really hard to do, but it was so much fun to see them start working. We have the speedometer gauge. We also put in a depth finder just to make sure we know which depth the water is and it's good for fishing. We got a gas gauge, an engine thermometer. I'm not sure if that's what they're called, but it's basically to check the trim on the engine. All gauges and buttons work really well. We're still waiting on a part for the tripometer gauge. We're also still waiting on some rubber covers to make sure that those toggle switches get protected from the salt water. That's always important. When you're mounting the shifter, you want to make sure that it's comfortable between the seats and the steering wheel. Lucky for us, I didn't bolt any of the seats down to make sure that they can always be moved for comfort. When we were mounting this fuse panel, we poked a hole in the fiberglass because the screws we were using were a little bit too long. So just make sure that if you're ever mounting something into the hull, that the screws are the correct size. This part's pretty important. When you're redoing upholstery, it's good to drill a few tiny holes at the bottom of all the upholstery along the side. So if any water or condensation gets in behind the upholstery trapped, it can drip out the bottom. Here we have the battery, and you can actually see the floor and the carpet there, which is just treated lumber. I set up a little solar panel there just to trickle charge the battery. This center console does multiple things. It keeps the seats nice and tight at the back so they don't move. It also gives us access to the gas lines, the bilge pump, anything that might require any maintenance down there. The bilge pump I got in there is just a cheap small one. I find this boat just doesn't take in a lot of water, but it never hurts to spend a little bit more money on a good one. Under the floor, we have a little cubby hole for storage. We usually keep our fishing rods down there and the lights. So we'll show you how those work. My neighbor actually gave us these lights as a donation towards the cause, and they are super bright and they work so good. So what these are built out of are PVC pipe, but they make it in like a 2x4. So basically I created squares around the lights just so that they could be a little bit more versatile. I grinded off the ends of these nails, and basically these nails hold the lights in place while they're mounted. I had a bunch of different ideas of where to put these lights, but I ended up putting them in the front just because honestly it was the easiest place to build a good mounting spot. Also, the wiring was a lot easier up front. I built them so that each of them could move 360, just in case you're pulling up to a dock and you need to see where you're going. Somebody can stand up front there and move the light back and forth where you need it. After they're mounted, you just slide the lock pins in place, and it just holds them down really nice and tight actually, which is pretty cool. To turn the lights on the boat, you have to hit the accessory switch first, and then after you hit the accessory switch, you can individually turn on all the other lights. As you can see, a lot of this is just custom rigging that we've done up. Now it's like really, really bright out right now, and I think this will show you the actual power of these lights. You still can see them turning on and turning off. Just showing this to give a shout out to my dad. These little pieces he custom made to hold up the windows because the original mounts were totally destroyed. I find when you're building parts for a boat, it's always good to use aluminum or PVC because it will never rust. Just like most boats of this era, there's a third window, which is a lock window. If you're doing most of the action in the back and not in the bow, you can protect yourself from the water. One of my absolute favorite things about this boat is the way to fill up the fuel. It's basically just like a car. You can even drive this to a gas station and just pump the fuel straight in and fill the tank. With that being said, when it is in the water and you're filling it while it's in the water, it can be kind of difficult, especially if you're using a 20-liter jug. Luckily, when we bought this boat, it came with all new steering parts. So basically, we just had to take out the old one and hook everything up, and it works really well. And that's about it. That wraps up the Thundercraft that we partially restored. If you're enjoying these videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We have a bunch more. We're also going to do a video of the boat in the water so you guys can see how nice it drives there. Anyway, thanks for watching. Enjoy your day.